All right. We're officially
You-
live. Thank you all for
Oh,
being here. Thank you to those watching this back. Just gonna be a discussion out here today about some of the recent events. And here I have with me Isolation Streams. Might know him as Nathan from Florida. Could have caught him on TV before on Jim Cramer live. But here we are. We're just here to kind
oh
of
yeah.
discuss what's going on. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on again. It was amazing last time, so I'm excited for a more amazing discussion.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, now we got that first one out of the way, we're a little more comfortable, can kind of get the convo rolling
Yeah, yeah,
smooth. So, and I want to say real quick, thank you to John Jar for being here right now, Danzo, and all of you else out there watching it. But appreciate you all getting the
yeah.
ball rolling good. But one of the first things I want to say, like looking at the whole situation, I read this morning, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like one of the first headlines, it's the UBS chairman saying it's a historic day and a day we hoped wouldn't come, which is just crazy that
Hmm.
Swiss National Bank was involved in that type of way, where the guy who was the chairman of the board of the company just acquired the other bank was like, "We didn't really want this, or we didn't really want this day to come, but here we are. We just bought it." So it's
Yeah, at like 27 cents a share. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
literally
Yeah, they
something like
definitely
that.
didn't
Yeah,
want this to happen. Okay,
it's
sure.
it's and the fact that the market cap it was bought at like officially because like yeah, I think it equates to like 80 cents a share now, or originally the offer was like 27 cents a share.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
then they basically bought it out for like a value of like what, like 3.2 billion. And
Hmm.
that's for like such a large amount of assets and like what the bank actually has relative to its market cap is just insane. And the amount of funding, like liquidity injected behind it to me was just nuts because they got 100 billion last week, then they could get another 100 billion right now. Or I'm sorry, they got 54 billion pledged last week from the Swiss National Bank when there was all the fears like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll be all good." And then with this deal, pretty much UBS said, "We're only doing this like if you're going to give us a bunch of liquidity because look at what we're taking. Like whatever they
Hmm.
have, derivatives and just risky positions just evidently seem like really bad because why would they offer all this liquidity like another 108 billion US dollars, it's like 100 like Swiss francs. And then they can do up to another 100 billion guaranteed by the Swiss government, which is just crazy. Like that's
Yeah,
so much money. And the Swiss National Bank lost 144 billion in 2022 or something nuts. Like which is
yeah.
just wow. In like 115-year history too.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think like, I mean, it could be because of Credit Suisse just being a really horrible like liability to act like acquire,
Hmm.
but also it was either like UBS buys them or the entire Swiss economy is in shambles, right? Their entire banking
Hmm.
industry is. So they
Absolutely,
pretty
yeah.
much had the government by the neck, just saying, give me this amount of money to cover my losses from last year, and then I'll save the
Hmm.
banking industry.
Yeah, it's very bizarre that we're in this situation, and like it seems like other countries too. Like Switzerland doesn't seem the only place it's kind of happening. And I don't know if you saw that the Fed, Bank of Japan, Bank of Canada, Bank of England, Swiss National Bank, and European Central Bank are like, don't worry, we're going to do more dollar liquidity swaps. Which just from looking that up, basically it just means more money, like moving through the system, quicker periods of time, stuff like that. Which is
Yeah,
like, why do they all need to come together like that? Like I find that extremely alarming. Like,
yeah. I like 2008 all over again.
mhm,
I mean, like, especially with Silicon Valley Bank. I know it's old
mhm.
news at this point because
No,
everything's
no,
happened since, but like
mhm.
mortgage-backed securities. Like, are you serious?
It's like we've been
They
here.
yeah, like uh, it's crazy. Also, hi John Jar.
Oh yes,
Hello.
John Jar, what up? Whiskey, Dobermir, what up? Danzo, got a question. Can the Fed keep bailing out the banks indefinitely, or will the Fed actually crash for some reason? I guess we're gonna find out, Danzo, because this is
Yeah.
definitely, like unique times. And I'm glad you brought up like 2008. Yeah, it's like I feel like as younger individuals, we didn't when it was happening, like we
Mhm.
didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean? We were just
Yeah.
like, okay, like the gas prices on the board. I remember thinking like, why is everyone saying gas is so expensive? When I was a kid, I used to see the board, and I was like, oh, it must just be because like life's expensive. So $5 gas must be just
Mhm.
wow. But then my mom's like, no, it's per gallon. I was like, oh, I'm an idiot kid. But
Yeah.
in hindsight, I was like, oh, that's why that was bad because that's a lot of
Mhm.
money to fill up your car to go to work every day. So
Yeah.
seeing that these types of things are occurring again, when you like read about them in school and they go, "Oh, well, they put in the stress test, they did this and they did that, so this wouldn't happen again." But like, here we are, like, and it seems like I'm just blown away by it, honestly. That,
Yeah. Um, yeah, the Hadron Collider sent us to an alternate universe. That's what it feels like.
mhm,
I mean, oh my gosh. Since COVID, things have just been bad and getting
mhm,
worse, and I feel like things are gonna probably get worse pretty quickly. I
yeah,
mean,
mhm.
I sorry, I didn't
No, go
see
ahead.
any of this stuff happening. Of course, I don't think anybody did, but if it was widely known, I think if
Mhm,
it will start to come out of how many banks are using these really risky strategies,
mhm,
like the mortgage-backed securities. I don't know. It's kind of I think that's why there's a lot of uncertainty right now is because if Silicon Valley Bank, the one that had huge amounts of
yeah.
money, if they were doing it, who else is doing it?
Yeah,
Um,
and I think
yeah,
that's kinda what's going on with First Republic, where it's like, "Wait a minute, let's all pull our deposits." Because from what I understand, the reason they're trying to raise even more money now and why the stock was crashing is because basically what they got isn't enough to cover what they needed to fix because now everyone's just yoinking their money. And you're right, if
yeah,
that just starts happening other places, it's like, "Wait, what if it's happening at my bank? I better move it." And just so much,
hmm
so fast, and just definitely a
yeah,
lot of shifts. And like we were talking about a little bit before we started recording, where it's like Bitcoin now, is doing its own thing or just reacting very differently compared to like times in the past where there's like uncertainty. You'd think like Bitcoin's kind of falling. Now it's kind of like inversing a little, or like what are you kind of thinking about that?
I don't know. I think that uh Bitcoin's been pretty bad. All cryptocurrency
Hmm.
has been pretty bad since like November 2021.
Hmm.
And that was conveniently right when I invested. I put my money into crypto
Of
in
course.
November 2021 and then it just bottomed out.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I don't know. Maybe things will start going in like the opposite, like inversely with how the market's moving.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I think people are going to start trusting crypto more than like banks, which I feel like it
Hmm.
really should, like crypto wallets and stuff. So maybe it'll start moving in the positive direction. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I just found it
Yeah.
really interesting how different time periods, there's different narratives. And when you look back, you're like, oh, why was I even thinking that? And then you think, oh, well, because everybody was talking like this or talking like
Hmm.
that. And I feel like it's just really interesting to like zoom out now and be like, oh, wait a minute, why is this doing this now? Like, what's the story here? Like, what's the play by somebody controlling a lot of money? Things of that nature. Like, I'm always very, I guess I could say like skeptical of things just because of how things have unfolded in the past like year or two, and especially
Right.
unfolding right now. And I know
Hmm.
you had said before, like, of course, like, who really, really saw this coming? But
Yeah.
what's crazy is there's definitely GameStop people out there, that have wrote stuff on like Super Stonk and things of that nature that were saying like we're in some deep shit. Like some bad
Hmm.
things are gonna happen,
Yeah.
or what's being done behind the scenes. And then when interest rates started rising, it was like, oh, this is what some of those people were talking about. And even me, I was like, I don't know. I mean, who's to say like this is really going on? Like I understand it, and like I see it, and then interest rates are going up. I'm like, okay, I see it more and more. And then
Hmm.
Silicon Valley Bank, I'm like, oh my god, this is what
Yeah.
everybody's been talking about. Or like, it
Right.
doesn't really
Right.
seem real until it's real, I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying. But
absolutely. Like I, for the last however many years, like I've just been hearing like the doomsday. Like oh,
mhm,
it's going to happen, financial collapse, and they're going to use it to rush in
mhm.
the central bank digital currency. They're going to try to destroy our economy. I'm like, okay,
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
interest rates
yeah.
are going up. I'm like, okay, like this is bad. And then I didn't really register that it was going to cause the collapse of some of these huge banks.
Mhm,
I mean, I guess as quickly as it did. And now I'm starting
mhm,
to think, I'm like, "Ah, oof, maybe maybe this is going to be when CBDC
mhm.
starts to be implemented."
Yeah, that's a scary thing to me because it's like, oh, what great timing. And also,
Hmm.
Silvergate, I don't know if you heard about them. They were a little bit of a smaller name that basically kind of went
Yeah,
under, associated
yeah,
with, yeah, like more so crypto. They were known for being like a crypto darling, like or whatever they say. Signature
hmm,
Bank had crypto associations. They're gone. Silicon Valley crypto associations. So it's like you have to wonder, and I feel like
yeah,
every bank of Silicon Valley Bank size has connections to some very powerful people. So, and what kind of
Mhm.
happened with GameStop and before this guy Ryan Cohen got in and everything started shifting is it seemed like an inside operation. I think we talked about this a little bit last time where Wall Street tries to destroy companies from within. They send
Right.
their affiliates, and if you really look deep, you're like, oh, and like this guy Marantz Rants, you should definitely check him out.
Mhm.
Oh, I think he was in the chat like last time, like clowning
Oh,
around.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's hilarious. But was saying a lot of this in like one of his streams, and I was like, oh, like, and he just really shows on his channel, like he really goes deep into things. But basically, it's like somebody maybe made some decisions inside for a certain reason because maybe just there's some association. I mean, I'm not that he's saying that particularly. I'm saying that, but he's saying things in the sense like always look at who's involved, why they're involved, like what they're doing,
Right,
stuff like that. So that's something
right.
really interesting to me. And like the more of these things that unfold, I'm like, so who is this chairman or like who is this
Mhm.
board member or why did they push for that back in that year? And you just start going down the rabbit hole and it's
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I don't really think that, Silicon Valley, like, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, I don't really think that that
hmm
was an inside job,
hmm
mainly because of the amount of swamp creatures from DC and Wall Street were
hmm
actually in Silicon Valley Bank and
That's a fair
lost a
point.
lot
Yeah.
of money,
hmm
and that's why they're rushing so quickly to fulfill all deposits, maximum, like,
hmm
just like Elizabeth Warren, she wants to, she was talking, she was, I guess, um Jerome Powell was testifying a while ago, a few days ago, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're
Um,
talking about. Where she was
yeah,
like, she was saying something along the lines of like, "Oh yeah, what? Only if it's systematic risk, then yeah, we'll just bail them out." Like
yeah,
something
but
like that,
she
right?
she also said she wants to, like, get rid of the limit for FDIC insurance, just
That's
completely get rid of it, like, insure everything. Like, how is that
yeah,
even sustainable? Socializing every loss, like,
yeah. It's
100%. That's just that's horrible.
it sounds nice, right? Because it's like, oh well, nobody should
Yeah,
ever lose money, but then you look at
yeah,
the Fed balance sheet, and then you look at inflation, and then
yeah.
eventually maybe it hits the taxpayer, and then
Money's
it's all of
gotta
a
be
sudden like,
printed
oh.
somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like one of the oldest quotes I remember hearing from like first starting to understand this stuff, like at an economic class in high school, it's like there's no such thing as free lunch. Like everything has a cost at the end of the
Mhm.
day, and it's such a
Oh, yeah.
simple meaning. And I thought, oh, what a simple like silly saying, but just over time learning more and more, and like especially the past week or two, I've learned a ton about banks I didn't know before. Like, oh,
Right.
there really is no such thing as free lunch. Like it starts to
Yeah.
kind of ring true. And real quick, I want to say what up to everyone in the chat. Xbit, John Jar, thank you for being here. Danzos, Anthony G, Dobermere, what up?
Oh, I saw
Mhm.
that. I'm sorry. Just in
No,
chat,
you're
somebody
good.
mentioned, the Credit Suisse chairman
Mhm.
blaming the social media storm. I saw that
Oh,
clip on
yes.
Twitter. That was funny.
Yeah, social
Wow.
media storm. What does that mean
Yeah.
even? Like,
Yeah. Blaming
more like
social media attacks, and I think he actually mentioned retail
Mhm.
investors causing the
Yeah.
collapse, and I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, he was like, "More retail than wholesale." Like, what does that even mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like as if people were like invested in Credit Suisse heavy, like individual investors. Like, who's ever been like passionate, like, "Oh yeah, Credit Suisse," like
Yeah.
it's just you know what I mean? It's not like everyone just got up and was like, "Okay, we're all selling our stock." And they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh," like what a
Yeah,
silly
I
thing
don't
to
think any
say.
I don't know of anybody who was shorting
Mhm.
Credit Suisse. I
Yeah,
I don't think there
exactly. It's
was a
like
short sell on them.
yeah, like
Um,
nobody like pushed for something. It's such a silly thing. And it's as if
yeah,
like tons of people like me and you could just all pool our money at the exact same time to do the
yeah.
exact same thing on a giant bank of the size of Credit Suisse. Like,
Well, I mean, let's just,
mhm,
let's use our imaginations here. If
mhm,
we as retail investors actually caused Credit Suisse to collapse,
mhm.
come on, guys, let's collapse all the other banks. Like, what are we
Exactly.
doing
Yeah, we'll
here?
just
Like,
everybody go
dude,
withdraw $10.
they can't stop us all. Do a bank
Yeah.
run. Go to your local Bank of America. Demand you take your money out. Yeah.
That's in there like, "Oh, we have hold on, it's gonna be back tomorrow," or like, what do they say? Like, if you get a
Yeah.
big amount of money, they're like, "Oh, you gotta come
Mhm.
in, we have to get the money shipped in." And it makes
Yeah.
sense now that all those banks have those precautions because it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
precautions, but at the same time, like, you don't really have that much money at each branch now, do you? Like,
Yeah. They have it in, like, regional holding centers, right? Something like that.
yeah, stuff like that. And then they have like, I guess one safe in each one, and then regional
Mhm.
holding centers, and then Soon
Just
enough, they'll probably be
find
digital
where the
holding
holding
centers.
centers are and then
Yeah.
demand that you get your money.
I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be like, oh, that's Bank of America's holding center. Wait, no, that's Wells Fargo holding center.
It,
Like I
isn't it
like
all the same? Don't they have it all pooled together? And then they
for
like, yeah, like
yeah,
the
in
all the
terms of like
banks.
shares. Yeah.
Yeah, they like the regional holding centers have just money for all the banks,
Mhm.
right? And then they
I
like
think
lend
so.
each
Yeah. I
other
mean,
when one's failing.
yeah, and I think that's a lot of why it's a little
Mhm.
bit of a different situation. But in terms of like central bank of Europe, Bank of Japan, Fed Reserve Bank, they're all working
Yeah.
together to do these liquidity swap line arrangements,
Yeah.
and apparently change it from weekly to daily, which is like, okay, but how much more frequent than can you get than daily if you need to do anything more?
Yeah.
And
I
what's
think
fun?
they're
Oh, go
yeah, no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna kind of just take it in a different direction and say I always thought it was funny, from the perspective of, like a younger person. Like I think we talked about it a little bit last time, but like interest rates, how
Mhm.
it was always 0%. Like it just always was. Like I couldn't even
Mhm.
imagine earning money in like a money market fund, or like I always thought, why would anybody like when I first started getting into investing, I was like, why would because we learn in economics, versus the risk-free rate. I'm like, there is no risk-free rate. So why would anybody not just invest? And then now I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, this is why this is bad in the long term because
Yeah.
when there actually is problems, then you can't, cut interest rates or
Mhm.
increase the money supply because you've already maxed out monetary policy. And it's like, oh my gosh, like just wrapping my head around it, like even talking about it, I'm just like, I can't even
Mhm.
believe like what's truly happening. Like I'm just truly mind blown sometimes.
Yeah. It's Phew. Yeah, we're definitely going to be seeing
Yeah.
some previously unthinkable stuff
Hmm.
happening pretty shortly. I feel like, the whole too big to fail that never went away.
Yeah,
Um, like,
exactly.
the bailouts, Washington Mutual and all that.
Hmm.
That never it just never went away. Like it's all these banks are still too big to fail and I mean,
Hmm.
that's what they're trying to they're like Congress especially is trying to protect themselves and
Hmm.
they're making the problem way worse. Like trying to cover all deposits, 100% of the deposits, like beyond 250,000, all of
Hmm.
that. It's yeah, there's
Yeah, no, I mean it's a very bold thing to say too, because the whole
yeah.
issue is, I mean, I'm no genius, right? I'm sure there's a boatload of issues. It's not just as simple as this, but at the end of the day, it's always like poor decision making. And
Yeah.
when these things do blow up, nobody gets in trouble.
Yeah.
There was like the chief executive officer, the CFO, and like CMO or like chief risk officer, something like that, were all selling Silicon Valley Bank stock like the couple weeks before, and they still like
Yeah.
got bonuses. I saw Credit Suisse today; tons of bonuses were still paid out. I'm like,
Mhm.
how does this stuff happen? And like, if it never changes, nobody ever gets in trouble. Anybody else is doing the same
Yeah.
thing. At the end of the day, is always like, well, nothing really happened to them, so
Yeah. I
why
mean,
should I change what I'm doing?
it just yeah, like the selling off the shares for Silicon Valley Bank weeks
Hmm.
before. I think that what we're seeing right now is people trying to cover their ass before everything falls apart.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like there was those all those Wall Street Journal or whatever, New York Times, all these articles
Hmm.
saying, don't worry, Silicon Valley Bank, it's not going to spread to other banks.
Yeah, no
Um,
contagion fears.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Minimize. It's all just it's
Mhm,
local. It's just that bank. They were doing silly things, but it's like it's gonna start happening like one after another. Things
mhm.
are gonna start falling apart. Like I've heard some things about Wells Fargo,
Yeah,
um, people
I
unable to withdraw and stuff.
yeah, that one day, which happened
Yeah.
to literally be, like, the day after Silicon Valley. It's like, "Oh, what convenient timing." Apparently, people
Hmm.
didn't get paychecks, and I
Yeah.
have a Wells Fargo credit card, so I went on there because I was curious,
Hmm.
and there was a notification that said something along the lines of, "You may have seen, deposits missing or something missing earlier today,
Hmm.
but don't be alarmed, we've worked to fix the problem,ng," or something like that, like, something it's
I
weird,
I
they
I am
acknowledged it.
alarmed. Like
Yeah, it's like the fact you
yeah,
acknowledged it. Why didn't you just those aren't rumors? Like you guys are
yeah,
saying it happened? Like
yeah.
that's very crazy.
It's God.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
and when they tell you not to worry, that's when you start panicking.
yeah, no, at the
Um,
end of the day, they always say like forget GameStop, GameStop stock's done. And I think that's a large part of the reason like a lot of individuals are like, maybe there's something really is here. And obviously it goes much deeper than that, but that's
yeah.
taught me, about anything. It's like, wait, why shouldn't I research this, or why is this
Mhm,
all fine now? You know what I mean? Like, I really do question everything because it's like does tend to be the opposite, in some sense or another.
mhm. There's a few
But
questions that I think are
yeah, let's do the
interesting.
chat. Yeah. Well, Marty, thank you for being here. Whiskey, that's a fact about before. Stimulus money definitely contributed. The Grid Up, Power Up documentary. Hey, Keith, thank you for being here. Ante, agree with you. Things started happening. It's going to be interesting. We're there, boys.
I
Thank you for
think
being
so.
here. And I think you
Yeah.
could be right. Chandra says, do you think the system is broke beyond repair and too corrupt, or is there enough good actors to fix and right the ship? We're a loud minority, but I think we can fix this. Need the transfer of wealth. That's a great comment. And my thought on that generally, and then I'll let you say what you have to say, Nathan.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
But what I think is number one, with GameStop, a lot of people I think maybe think like, oh, yeah, we want the whole system to crash and burn. I mean, me personally, I don't want to live in a world where we're at like square one, where it's like people are running around the streets like crazy. I don't want anything like that. So I like to say I do have faith the system can be repaired. Maybe there needs to be some major changes, and I think undoubtedly there does need to be. People need to get in trouble, etc. But I really do think it can be done, and it's through, money is power. So yeah, you're right. It's a smaller group of individuals, but people with the right mindset. And I don't want it to be a world like I don't want to even envision something like straight disastrous. So I say I have faith mostly because I guess it's a little bit of a bias perspective, if that kind of makes sense. But
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think.
Yeah. So okay. So first, you said that the um. Oh, okay. Hold on. I misread your question.
Mhm,
The loud minority, is he referring to the ones that are
mhm,
controlling like that are in charge? The big money
mhm.
movers.
Oh
Is
no, I
that what
think
he's?
he's probably
Because he
referring
said
like if
we feel
GameStop were to appreciate a lot in value, then it
Okay.
would
So
be
is it? Oh,
individuals.
because okay, I
The
get what you're
transfer
saying.
of
Yeah.
wealth. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I don't think that people like us are in the minority. That's the point I want to make.
Mhm.
Because a lot of
Okay.
people asked me, "Oh, wow, so you were you like a big GameStop trader? Were you a big like retail investor? How long have you been doing this?" I'm like, I
Mhm.
personally was not big into retail investing when I went up and did the whole Jim Cramer thing.
Mhm.
But a lot of people around me that also were in my same situation, just kind of like casual, not super into the stock market, not like
Mhm.
doing a lot of like money, not moving a lot of money and stuff. College students and like my
Mhm.
parents and my parents' friends and all that. We all are on the same page. We all saw what happened to GameStop. That wasn't just the small people on the internet that
Mhm.
saw it happen. It was everybody everywhere saw it
Mhm.
happen. And all of us are on the same page. No matter who you talk to, if you ask them about the
Mhm.
economy, everybody agrees that the system is fucked up beyond belief. Like
Yeah, that's a
people
good point.
are, yeah, like Occupy Wall Street, that whole movement, like the mentality
Mhm.
behind getting rid of the people who are fucking up the economy, that
Mhm.
that's really everywhere now, especially after COVID.
Yeah,
And about is there being enough, is there a good enough, oh my god, sorry, is there
very
enough
good.
good actors to right the ship? um I think that the way the economy has been structured, I think pretty much since the end of World War II,
Mhm.
has really put a lot of power into large corporations. And during the Cold War, it was strengthened the relationship between American corporations and the government.
Mhm.
And now I feel like it is inseparable. Pretty much, these big corporations, Wells Fargo, Bank of America,
Mhm.
all BlackRock,
Let's say yeah,
especially,
BlackRock, Vanguard,
yeah,
those, yeah.
they are inseparable from the political establishment in Washington.
That's a great
And
point.
if one goes, the other does too. So I think that if there is enough people that are united in the change they want to bring to the system, then I feel like it would be beneficial. But then if the system does fall apart, you're going to have people on either side being like, fix the system and bring it back to a laissez-faire state, get the government out of the economy, and then people who just want the
Mhm.
government to control the economy. There's two
Yeah.
different sides to this, because everybody agrees that the system is fucked up, but it's either
Mhm.
should the government control the entire economy or should the government get out of the economy. And
Good point, yeah.
if people
And
can't
that's kind of
agree,
the war with
then
crypto right now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Because people are like, "Oh, yeah, well, it should all be regulated," but then people are like, "Well, then they're just gonna control it all, and then what if,
Hmm.
they use it for bad?" But then it's
Yeah.
like it's just all in the hands of individuals. What if individuals just don't manage it right? Like, there's so many
Mhm.
different like sides to the coin. So it's really not a coin because it's not just two sides. But
Yeah.
you that's a great point that a lot of people do agree. Like, yeah, it's everything's fucked up right now. Like so many things are
Mhm.
just backwards and just upside down. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you're right because people are, oh, we have to fix it like this. Oh, we have to fix it like that. No, we should do this. No, we should do that.
Mhm.
And that's what I really realized. Like politics is a lot of left and right, and like, oh, he
Mhm.
said, she said, and then when you realize, like, wait a minute, if you just step back and
Mhm.
like actually focus on like the problems, then you're like, wait a minute, nothing ever gets done. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, like
But
it's CBDC versus Bitcoin, basically. That's the argument. That's
yeah,
what really what
good
comes
point,
down to.
XFIT. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, no, it really is. And the CBDC is just very alarming because it's like seeing the Fed Now thing came out. I don't know if you saw that, like the Federal Reserve like instant
No.
payment system they're launching. So it's like Federal Reserve's like official thing called Fed Now. And it seems like it's kind of the groundwork for that. So it really seems like we're kind of heading towards it. And it's
Mm.
quite alarming, honestly. I mean, I don't want to see a world where it's like, oh, you didn't get that thing, or oh, you
Mhm.
didn't, you. What if it's something even stupid? Like I walked across the street, I jaywalked, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, now
Like
your bank
China.
account's
China
freezing.
has the whole social
Yeah.
credit system. Like I don't know. I don't know if this is accurate. I couldn't find anything about this. But I remember that there was a story going around. It might have been fake, but
Hmm.
in Australia, they were like experimenting with a social credit score. Where if you like were breaking quarantine violations during COVID, you couldn't access your bank account or something like that.
I feel like I might have
Which
heard that
yeah, I mean, even if
potentially.
that wasn't true, it happened in Canada. Like, like people protesting the
Hmm.
government got their accounts frozen. Like
Yeah,
that, if that precedent
it's
has been
alarming.
set in the West, and it's
Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's a scary thing. I mean, because you walk a very fine line, or it's not. I don't know how to exactly put this, but that's a very like once you start getting into that territory, it's like, well,
Hmm.
what else could you technically do out of the good of things, right? And it's just
Yeah.
your perspective on the good of things, maybe not what the people that are protesting think is the good of
Mhm.
things. And I haven't been following it that much, but I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I think it's in the Netherlands, like with farmers
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I mean, I don't know if you have any context on that. I know I've been reading like tidbits, like
Yeah.
whatever kind of pops up, but I'm like,
Hmm.
what is going on there? Like,
Yeah.
you have any thoughts on that or perspectives?
Yeah, I've been following it for a little bit now.
Okay, nice.
Essentially, I don't know how
Hmm.
much of like the World Economic Forum or like the Great Reset plan everybody's familiar with. It's been
Yeah,
called a
yeah.
conspiracy theory a lot, but it is a real
Mhm,
thing.
mhm.
And the prime minister of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, I think is his name. I don't know how to pronounce his last name,
Okay.
but something like that.
Mhm,
He was like a big like he was big into the whole Great Reset thing, and he was friends with Klaus Schwab, and he was trying
mhm.
to like
Big dogs.
that's what they're yeah that's what they're doing with like they're trying to get rid of farms because of carbon emissions or whatever they're talking about.
Mhm.
And like so for some climate change narrative, they're gonna try to get rid of the farms. Whatever alternative motive they have for that, I'm not sure, but
Mhm.
yeah, so that's what they were trying to do is just get rid of farms because and like get rid of fertilizer because it was like nitrogen emissions or something like that.
Really? That's
And yeah,
that's crazy because it's like
and they're
whatever you're gonna use to replace it, like, there's probably be something bad in
yeah,
that in some sense or the
yeah,
other, like
where are you getting your food if you get rid of the farmers? So
yeah.
actually, I don't know how recent this was. I think this is actually
Mhm,
just a few days ago. Um, there was a parliamentary election in the Netherlands, and
mhm.
there was a political party formed by the farmers, and they actually
Oh, really?
won a like the largest minority in the Senate, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's pretty
yeah,
incredible, I didn't
and
even realize that.
there was somebody on Twitter who's posting about it, someone from the Netherlands, and they said that the current establishment parties don't have enough seats to even make a majority, even if they had a uh,
Mhm.
what's it called? I'm forgetting the name for it, but like an alliance in the Senate, they
Yeah, yeah,
don't
I see
even
what you're
have
saying,
enough
like,
to make a
where they could
majority.
actually make things kinda
Yeah,
pass through.
yeah, which is pretty. I mean, that's pretty. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's the fact that people are like, okay, we need to like, something has to change. Like enough people are like you're kind of saying before, like maybe we don't all agree on the best change, but we got to change something. Like,
yeah. Yeah, if there, that's what I think needs to happen in the
Hmm.
U.S. is there needs to be some sort of union party that is like
Hmm.
everybody agrees that the system is broken and we need to get into power so that we can get the swamp creatures out and we can
Yeah.
actually fix our country. After we get them out, then we can agree, like
Hmm.
debate which one is best. You know?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. And the thing is too, like you were kind of saying before, where money and big business for a while now, it's just so closely affiliated. And something I find
Hmm.
alarming is with the banks that, everybody's running from all these like regional banks, but where are they going? Just to the big banks. They're just everything's
Yeah.
just moving up more, just pushing more together. And something I realized, about GameStop when it was infiltrated with Wall Street executives that potentially, trying to kind of put the company to the ground. And you've seen it happen with other companies. And for example, like Bed Bath and Beyond right now is struggling a lot. I know some people out there like that, but me personally, I think the company's in a lot of doo doo and they need to, fix a
Hmm.
lot. But part of how they've gotten to where they're at now is it seems like it was infiltrated with a lot of
Hmm.
bad decision making. And when that happens, who like Bed Bath goes out of business or GameStop theoretically goes out of business, any of these names, I realize I'm like, who benefits? Amazon. So the bigger
Hmm.
companies just get bigger, the medium, smaller ones just die out. And it's like now this is kind of happening with banks in the sense of like, holy crap, everything that's happening to a certain point, it's like maybe not technically the government owns everything, but they have their hands in the pockets of all the largest players, and it's only the largest players left, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just so mind blowing seeing for me, like I tie a lot of things back to GameStop because it really opened my eyes to like a lot of different things. I always thought, oh, okay, this or people say that. But then when I started reading about GameStop and really understanding things, I'm like, oh, I can see like this pattern in this other topic, like whether it's the banks or anything at all. Like
Hmm.
this is how the media works. And I think
Yeah.
everybody's just waking up a lot, these past few years are especially, just being younger individuals
Yeah.
going through all this, it's like what is the world going to look like in 5 years? Like that's going to be like we
Hmm.
still have a lot of life ahead after that. And it's like, what is the
Yeah.
world going to look like these upcoming decades? Like, I really wonder that sometimes.
Yeah, I really do wonder what the world is gonna look like, what the economy is gonna be like when I hit retirement age.
Hmm.
Will any of this stuff be around?
Yeah.
Will it be the same but worse,
Hmm.
or will we have triumphed over the
Yeah. Some
corporatocracy?
tough times. Yeah. A great quote I love. I don't know who exactly said it, or maybe there's not even like a direct person who said it. It's just a saying, but it's like, easy times make for weak leaders, and
Yeah.
tough times make strong leaders. I feel like we're
Hmm.
in tough times. We've had easy times for a long time, and that's kind of
Hmm.
all across the board. It seems like a lot of weak leaders, and now they're just. I mean, I don't want to go saying individual names, but there's definitely leaders out there in these different countries that are being really trying to hang on to their power, like really doing whatever they need to do to kind of keep their agenda going, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, what you must feel like you have to grasp onto something if you're forcing that. Because in good
Hmm.
times, people just, oh, yeah, yeah, no problem. In bad times, people are like, wait a minute. And if you're just using
Yeah.
government power to force, it's like, we need
Yeah.
some strong people to step in. And hopefully, we're kind of coming to that, like you're kind of saying, step in,
Yeah.
kind of clean out the swamp creatures, so to speak. And
Hmm.
we need those like tough leaders in tough times. And yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have to kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah. I think that we hit so we okay about the tough times
Mhm.
part when it went from good times to tough times.
Mhm.
Arguably you could say that happened after 9/11, once
Mhm.
the NSA was made and all that. That's when it started to become tough times and stuff.
Mhm.
Like when freedom went away. I was born after 9/11, so
Mhm.
um
I was 1 years old
I'm
when it happened, so yeah.
yeah, so
Mhm.
I have no recollection of because I can't. I have no perspective of
Mhm.
what life was like before that. But I feel like you have everybody talks about post 9/11 and pre 9/11. Post COVID and pre COVID, I think, is what
Yeah,
people are going to really start talking about. I think COVID
absolutely.
marks the point where we went from good times, like we went from good times to tough times.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great point
100%.
because things changed, and then it was always like, "Oh, well, they're gonna go back," and then all of a sudden,
Never
like,
did.
economically, everything was like, "Oh, it's back, their stocks are up, everybody's getting money, everybody's buying a bunch of stuff, everything's fine," but, like,
Hmm. It's
it
just not the
wasn't even
same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just and we never at that point too. It's so weird to me. Is like so many people are spending so much money and like doing so many different things, but like a lot of people are still wearing masks and like not even
Mhm.
like getting a full experience, if that kind of makes, or like the world wasn't
Yeah.
even back at its full state. And then when we kind of start finally moving away from masks and like people being just less worried and just being able to do more in person things, like we're humans, we got to be in contact with each other. That starts
Mhm.
happening more, and then it's like these economic things start happening as those. So it's like there's this weird
Yeah.
disconnect, and yeah, now we're just in this weird state of like it's post COVID. Like what?
Mhm.
There's no going back. It's just post COVID. It's just however
Yeah.
it goes from here. Like it's very crazy. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, it's like we had this kind of fake recovery, new normal, like
Hmm.
last year. And then I feel like it was like a really just like a fake up to trying to like, fake it till you make it. And then it would
Hmm.
like, they were trying to make it like go back, I guess, like
Yeah.
increase economic recovery. And now it's just going back down. I think that it's gonna all the stuff that's happening right now is what they're trying to prevent,
Hmm.
and now it's like the establishment banking industry especially is gonna be
Yeah.
really in tough times for
And it's
sure.
just insane that to me, like nobody. I mean, obviously people did see it and people were talking about it, but with monetary policy just being so abused, keeping interest rates at zero, even after things got better, like didn't start raising them until it's like too late. And so
Mhm.
much money was pumped out there, whether it's stimulus checks, all the different things going on over time. So
Yeah.
much money just created. It's like those are the things you do, and the reserve ratio, like the percentage of money the bank actually has to have in cash. They made that zero during the pandemic, and they never brought it
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
So they
that's
can
that's
do
a big
whatever.
thing.
Like
That it's still yeah, that's
still,
just yeah.
I
Oh
really
my
think they
god.
can't. Like part of the
Yeah.
reason they haven't changed back is they can't because look
Mhm.
what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. How many other banks could this potentially happen to if they
Yeah.
change the reserve ratio to be back above 0%, which is crazy because it's like, how could that be damaging? It's like, if the number's been zero, like, it really blows my mind. Like,
Yeah.
just saying it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we got out of that small like period of time where everything was really bad during like the height of
Hmm.
COVID, and then like all the money pumped into the economy. It was, I mean, everybody knew when it happened it was unsustainable. Like
Yeah.
it's just this isn't going to be sustainable. But there was like trying to jumpstart the economy.
Hmm.
I don't, yeah, I mean, just giving all like the banks this like freedom to like
Yeah.
just
Too
go
much freedom.
beyond, yeah, have no reserve money or whatever. And it's just it's not even the fact that the banks were, deregulated.
Hmm.
It's like that shouldn't have been there in the first place. Like these things shouldn't have been here in the first place to cause
Yeah.
the perfect setup for a total collapse when you get rid of the regulations,
Yeah.
Like,
I think you brought up a
yeah.
great point where you're like, or you were kind of saying like it seems too good to be true, and everybody
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
knew it,
Yeah.
but it was like,
Yeah.
well, just kind of keeps being good, so I guess it's fine.
Mhm.
Everybody's acting like it's fine, right? It reminds me of
Mhm.
The Big Short, out of like the beginning part of the
I
movie,
Yeah, yeah.
when it's like a few weirdos saw what the whole world couldn't, while everyone's having like a big old party or something like that.
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly,
Yeah.
but it was something like
Yeah.
everybody just thinks like everything's fine, and it's like just a few people started being like, "Oh my goodness!" Like,
Mhm. It's like driving out onto a frozen lake, and, like,
mhm.
as you get closer to, like, the center, you're like, "This isn't we can't keep going like this. It's gonna," and then it's like the
At
ice
some
gets
point,
thinner and thinner. It's like, and then you go past the point that you think it's not gonna go well, and then you're, like, still driving, but it's you're gonna hit
yeah,
that, and we're like the ice is starting to crack right now.
yeah, you're right, and it's like you can't
100%.
really stop the vehicle at that point.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
just
Now
gonna
now you,
slide.
like, you turn up, you stopped accelerating, but you're on ice, so you just yeah, it's you can't.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's funny. That reminded me of you ever seen the Polar Express? You know that Christmas movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when it's
Yeah.
like it's like sliding through the tracks. Like I don't know. That's what
Except
I
they
thought.
made it out of that.
That's what I was gonna say. We need some Polar Express like comeback. Like they made it out
Mhm.
of it, like left, right, or whatever, hit the throttle or something.
Yeah.
but but no, it's a good
Mhm.
analogy. I know what you mean, but it was just funny. That was reminding me of that.
Oh,
But
yeah. John said,
mhm.
most popular president in US history. Yeah, right? Definitely. It's and Kamala too. Everybody loves what they're doing to the economy.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like I feel like everybody kind of knows. I mean, of course, every individual can think what they want,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really seem like it's really Joe Biden, whatever's being tweeted. He's not tweeting
Mhm.
out here. Like, I mean, that's to say the least. I mean, it seems
Yeah.
like he's kind of go this way, go that way, and it's like there's no true face to our nation.
they are souping him up on Adderall or whatever they can get their hands on because they do not want Kamala taking power, especially now.
Yeah,
God,
it's
you said you
good.
didn't want to get into politics earlier, but I mean,
We could do a
the way
little
she
bit.
talks, the way she talks, like that. If you want to
Mhm.
destroy confidence in the economy, just let her speak about it for what little bit.
Yeah,
Stock market crash instantly.
yeah. I
Dear
haven't heard
God.
too much, but yeah, I don't think public speaking is quite her strength.
Yeah, what she was talking about, the Ukraine thing, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Russia is a big nation. Ukraine is a small nation. Russia invaded Ukraine, so basically that's bad," or something like that. It's like,
Yeah,
ah,
yeah, and it's tough because I think a lot of people are in agreement too, But then if you like, for example, if you're on the left and you say we shouldn't send money to Ukraine, people on the left are like, "What? That means you're a super
mhm,
rightist." You know what I mean?
mhm,
And it's just
yeah,
crazy because I feel like low key, most people think like no matter how you feel politically, we have a lot of problems here ourselves, like,
yeah,
and we just keep pouring money into their pockets. And yeah,
mhm,
maybe you think we should help them, maybe you don't, whatever. But I think everybody's pretty much in agreement. A lot of Americans, there's a lot of things we
yeah,
could fix, like seeing what happened with the trains, and you could go down. That's
mhm.
a
Oh,
whole
yeah, what
conversation in
happened to
itself.
that? Nobody even talks about that anymore. All the
It's
train derailments,
everybody went from
Ohio, yeah,
everybody went
and the
from
UFOs, the balloons. What the fuck?
that's what I say. Everybody
Yeah,
went from like a space expert to them being a
mhm,
train expert, and now
mhm,
everybody's a banking expert. Like
yeah.
it's always everybody. It's instantly becomes like I'm a connoisseur of this topic. Like
Mhm. Yeah, and Jesus. I mean, you remember monkeypox? What was that?
oh yeah, that was like a temporary
That's
thing. Like
gone.
yeah, like
Yeah.
just as
Current
if it
thing,
never happened.
gone. Yeah, they don't need that distraction anymore.
Like oh yeah, well we bring that one up at another point.
Yeah, exactly. That'll come
It's
back later.
crazy. Yeah, and to kind of like switch back to the banks a little bit.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, let's go back to the topic
No,
at
you're
hand.
good. Yeah, no, but that's not it's a podcast. We're just kind of, rocking and
Yeah.
rolling with it and just discussing. But thank you all
Yeah,
for being
right.
here. Appreciate you all, and thank you to those watching this back. Also appreciate you as well.
Mhm.
But
Shout out to the VOD gods.
yes, that your gang?
Well, yeah, no, the VOD gods is like, people who, like, watch the video on demand, like, at a later date. Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
stream.
I never heard
Yeah.
that. Gotcha. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, is
it's a
that like
Twitch term. I'm bringing my Twitch culture in
gotcha,
here.
gotcha. The VOD gods. All right.
Yeah.
Respect. I like it. I like it. VOD gods. I'll remember that. But them. What I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Oh,
banks. Sorry.
thanks. Yeah. No, you're chilling. I don't know if you saw this, which I thought was like really bizarre. Typically in a bankruptcy, they say, well, bondholders would get paid before shareholders.
Mhm,
So I was reading a little bit this morning with the whole UBS buying out Credit Suisse. Yes, there's the back liquidity from Swiss National Bank, Swiss government. Everyone's involved, basically making it happen. Which number one, there was no shareholder vote. The shareholders don't even have a choice. They decided it over the weekend. They're like, it has to happen because my guess is Credit Suisse was done this week. Like they would
mhm,
default or it'd just be done for if
mhm.
something didn't happen over the weekend. So one, they rushed it, and two, which I thought this is crazy, something called tier one bonds, which are supposedly they don't have like a maturity date, but they pay more indefinitely. And there's like 17.24 billion of them just went poof. Like they just suddenly were worthless. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to pay
Wow.
any more of it. And it's like, how are some like the shareholders are obviously getting burned, don't get me wrong, but there's bond holders that are just it's just gone. Like, hold on, I have more notes on in here somewhere, but I was reading like, how is this even possible? Yeah, it's called tier one debt. It's being written down to zero, um, and employees were still getting bonuses. So it's like, how could employees still get bonuses, but then these bonds couldn't be paid?
Yeah, wow, I see it right here.
Yeah, it's like
$17 billion
convertible.
dollars worthless.
Yeah, and supposedly, like
Wow.
looking a little further in my notes here, because I really just wrapped my head around what these were today. I'm like, I've never. What's the heck is a tier one bond? There's no maturity. But basically, they can convert it usually to stock at any time, if things. theoretically went south, but then they're like, nope, sorry, they're just worthless. You can't even convert it to stock, which is so bizarre.
Wow.
Yeah, like I was just reading, I'm like, is this right? Like, and thinking the buyout is for again, the company's valued at like 3.3 billion. These bonds alone are 17 billion. Um, Swiss National Bank had tons. How much? 128 billion in cash just from Yahoo Finance. 201 billion in debt. That's just total debt, total cash as of like last earnings, which is just like those numbers are so massive relative to what the company's market cap is, and that just like blows me away.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that has
That's
to do with like unrealized losses and current value of the assets, and there's tons of different things going on with banks, and that's what I'm learning from just really digging into these. But it's just so mind blowing how much bigger these numbers are, and like the amount of liquidity being provided relative to the actual size of what the technical company is worth, which is just it's just like what is anything really worth if the actual bank is not worth anything, but they hold everything, right? Is it? It's just so
yeah.
like it's like a mind bender, if that makes sense. Or like it just twists my brain
Mhm.
up in a knot. I'm like, how is this?
Yeah. That's really strange. Um, they're just
Yeah,
gonna
when you start
wipe
thinking
out.
about it all, it's like, what the?
Yeah. That's. I mean, I honestly, it
Mhm,
doesn't surprise me that much that like that bondholders would be screwed over like that.
mhm,
It's happened before, and it's gonna probably keep happening over the next few weeks for sure, with the other companies, other
mhm,
banks as they go under. I mean, they're they're pouring so much money right now to try and keep things from going under. They're like,
mhm.
what's going to happen when they fail to cover
Yeah.
the costs?
What if it
And
gets worse? There's nobody like
yeah,
anticipating that. They're just like, well, let's just throw all the water on the fire now. What if you run out
yeah,
of water and then the fire's still
exactly,
going? Yeah,
exactly.
it's very bizarre. I mean, but at the same time, my thought on that is like, wait a minute, it must be that bad if they are like,
Hmm.
well, we better just start trying to do something now because if we don't fix it now, like it's fucked. It almost
Hmm.
seems like that's the reaction, which is like, whoa, how bad is this really? And
Yeah.
it's also come at a time with all the AI stuff, and like that bugs me out a little bit. And that's also
Oh
another one of
yeah.
those things where like we went through a little bit of a time period where all of a sudden everybody was like a robot, artificial intelligence expert. Like, oh
Oh
yeah, we don't
yeah.
do like yeah, there's
Yeah.
a little
Chat
time period of
GPT.
that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Everybody started doing that
Every
shit.
guy at the party have oh, okay, okay. So, being
Let's
a
hear it. You got a
college
good story?
student, every party you go to, it's like, the crypto bros are now like
Mhm.
AI bros, and they're like,
Ah, gotcha, gotcha.
yeah, dude, have you seen Chat GPT, bro? Like, it can write your essay for you. It's like, ah, okay, and then it's just, yeah,
It reminds me of that meme. You know the guy like
uh,
talking to the girl and he's like
yeah, yeah,
it's like that, but I'm telling you, write your essays, you can write your emails, your Instagram
exactly,
captions, like
exactly,
that's the new
and
version of
now
it.
nobody's really talking about it, but OpenAI
Mhm.
was originally a nonprofit, and now
Yes, I
it's
did
not.
hear that, yeah.
And now it's not open source. It's not open anything. They're closed. Basically, it should be called closed AI, but now it's not a nonprofit. It is
Mhm. M
it's for profit
Tons
now,
of
and it
profit.
makes you wonder. You
Mhm.
know what company has poured money into this thing to try? I think Microsoft poured a lot of money into it, but like
They bought like
you know,
50% of it, yeah, or for like
yeah.
billions or something.
What is this gonna be used for? What is GPT-4 gonna be used for? Now it's smart. Now
Mhm.
it's, like, super smart, and it's, like,
Only getting smarter.
almost yeah, now it's, like, really, really flawless.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
are people gonna be using it for? What's the government gonna be using it for? That's the scary thing right there.
Yeah, and sometimes I think too, I'm like, what if there's, further technology? There's always the theory. It's like, well, if we have all this now, maybe the government's already had this for a couple of years. Then it's like, well, what do they have
Mhm.
now if they just gave us this, right? I mean, that's all theoretically. But
Yeah.
even then, if everybody's on the same level right now, like you said, Chat GPT 4 now is released or whatever it's
Yeah.
called, or like the fourth variation where now it can
Yeah,
pass
yeah.
like the bar exam like 90% of the time, something like that.
Yeah.
It's like super, super smart. If it's already there and it only launched in what, November? How
Mhm.
much farther and how fast it's going, it's like, how smart is this thing gonna be in, like, just a few years even? What about a few decades? Like,
Yeah.
it blows
Indistinguishable from humans at that
yeah, it
point.
blows my mind to think Google was only created, like, 20 years ago or, like, a little bit over 20 years
That's
ago.
30 years now, right?
Yeah, or yeah, I guess technically, yeah, but nobody was really like I feel like using a search engine till like kind of .com, which I
Yeah,
guess damn yeah, now that is like a little like about 25 years
30.
ago.
Yeah, something
Crazy,
like that.
yeah. But it's like if this much happened in terms of technology since
Mhm.
then, how much more can happen in just another 25 years, another 50 years? Like it's truly
Yeah, I mean,
mind-boggling.
we're, uh, we're closer to 2030 than we are to 2016, so, you know,
Yeah, that's
let
that's a
that sink
crazy
in.
stat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah, because 2030, I'll be 30 years old. So that's kind of crazy. Like I feel like still, I'm
Mhm,
definitely not. I'm not gonna say I like oh I feel old or something like that. But I still
mhm,
feel like like I'm like oh yeah like just got into the 20s. But now like I'm about to turn 23 this year, and I'm like damn all of a sudden like this whole life
mhm.
thing is like kicking off and shit. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Phew, yeah,
But yeah, just time flies. I feel like the more noise there is, so to speak, and just the more like
yeah.
technology, everything just starts moving faster and faster and faster. And even like money digitally, faster. We just live in a very, very fast world. It's very hard to like slow down. Even like short swipe, swipe, swipe. Like it's crazy.
Mhm,
Everything just revolves around that. And I feel like it's kind of so individuals can never really, some of the stuff we were talking about before, just make changes or really
yeah,
just
yeah, for
find
sure.
solutions because it's just noise, noise, fast, fast, short, short.
Yeah,
It's
your attention spans are seconds now, you know?
yeah, it's crazy. Like I literally like annoy myself and I'm like I can't even focus on this. I'm like I literally
Mhm,
want to like read this thing or do like it's so hard though because
mhm,
just the way everything's become and everybody around you is like it's like oh you're not on this and like I really try not to even use Instagram or the
mhm.
shorts or anything because I feel like it's just
It's bad.
addicting. Yeah,
It's bad.
and then
It
it's like
it's yeah,
yeah, or
it's definitely numbing our society, I think, for sure.
yeah, and I also think too, like for example, like I have a little cousin. She's like late in elementary school now. I think I forget exactly how old she is, but off the top of my head. But point is, I'm thinking like for everyone in her grade, that must be just the normal. And like I can't even imagine just using Instagram Shorts and TikTok at that age, and
Mhm.
like they're all on it, and like there's just so much like everything on there. Like everybody's
Yeah,
and there's like
yeah.
no like you could see explicit stuff on there like pretty easily. I know they have like, probably technically like under 18, but I'm like young
Mhm,
kids are seeing all this stuff. And something I heard recently, I think it was Joe Rogan who said it or somebody, that TikTok came and we thought when TikTok came, we thought, wow, this is even like faster. Like when
mhm,
YouTube was around at that time, it was like, wow, this is really the game changer. Like, wow, now everybody's
mhm,
attention's really destroyed. Then TikTok came, and it's like, wow, but it's like there's at some
mhm.
point or another could be something even faster, even
Yeah.
newer in terms of, and it's like, how much worse can our attention spans get? Like it's
I
kind of
mean,
scary.
when you were talking about earlier about, like, explicit content that you see,
Hmm.
it's like I just think about, like, my childhood. I had unrestricted internet access, and I
Hmm.
was smart enough, that I just went in and I made my age. I was born in, like, 1890 or something like that, just so that I could
Nice.
have no age restriction,
Yeah, yeah, the
and,
oldest possible one.
yeah, and that's just, like I saw, like, a lot of shit that I probably shouldn't have seen, but,
Hmm.
I'm just thinking about it, I'm like, I don't see how what these kids are, like, experiencing on TikTok or that. I don't quite see how, it's really any different than what I did. It just has a
Hmm.
different form, different shape,
That's a
but it's
true
pretty much
point.
the exact
Yeah,
same thing.
that's a great point actually. Yeah, because I was thinking more so, like girls are always shaking everything on there, and it's like that's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
encouraged. And I
yeah.
just
I
think
mean,
like,
shit. Back in the
mm,
when I was, back in my day, Um, I mean, that YouTube's restrictions were pretty much, like,
mhm.
non-existent, you know?
That's true. Yeah, so it was kind of like whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point.
and
Oh,
yeah.
god.
Go ahead, no, no.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, like I'm acting like, yeah, I always followed the rules or something like
Yeah.
that. I used to literally play poker with Bitcoin. I remember going to the 7-Eleven with my friend, buying Visa cards, and then going on Coinbase, buying it with the Visa card, and then going from Coinbase to like the platform. And what's crazy is if we had just held that Bitcoin and never played poker with it, we were
Mhm.
buying it like below 1,000 a Bitcoin, but we were just, using it for the game. And like
Oh my
obviously we didn't
god.
get any out of it, or like I didn't, I don't know whatever happened to my friend with it, but we didn't, put a lot in either. Because we're like, how good is this? We just wanted to play poker. But it's just
That's
funny,
funny.
like yeah, I'm acting like I always did the right thing, but it's I feel like just when it's
Yeah.
in more in your face, like I don't know, kind
I
of just
I I don't
encourages
know.
it more.
I feel like we've always had that kind of thing. It's always been, the next generation has that. It's always that's how every generation I think has been. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
that's
too
true.
stressed about that. But yeah, the somebody made a point in chat.
Mhm.
TikTok's a Chinese owned company.
Yeah,
And
those are the real
they're
spy
doing
balloons. The
yeah
TikTok on our phone.
yeah, exactly. They banned it on government devices for a reason.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's definitely they're I think what TikTok is doing is having their algorithm tailored towards content that is harmful
Mhm.
in the US and then doing the opposite in China.
Yes.
Um,
Promoted to be smart. Here, promoted
yeah,
to do dances.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's
Because
very
they're the ones who
alarming.
decide. Yeah, they're the ones who decide what's popular on the app. I
Yeah,
wonder
because
if
they
things can
control
go
the
into
algorithm,
systems.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very, very bizarre how everything shifted, and all these like cultural shifts, economic shifts, they're all really just happening like right before our eyes. I mean, it's always going to shift every which way, but just seeing economics for me at least like spilling over into everything, it's just very like mind-boggling, because all these things you talk about them and you're like, we were kind of saying a little bit before, like, oh yeah, everybody says it's bad, or like these are the reasons it's bad, or this is the problem, but nothing, everything just kind of just keeps going, and it's like whatever until things start to really change, and it's like, oh my goodness, like we have a problem. And I think that's kind of the same sense with TikTok a little bit. And it's like
Hmm.
all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, their algorithm like is definitely not the same algorithm we're seeing. It's
Yeah.
like when you start to
Yeah.
it seems like whatever, then all of a sudden it's like, wait, every kid is just swiping and like looking at stupid
Yeah.
stuff, while every Chinese kid is swiping and looking at like people doing positive things, and just positive
Hmm.
social, social score and whatever over there. It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that is honestly is propaganda if they're actually doing that in
Hmm.
China, because in China they have not to get too much into geopolitics, but in China
Hmm.
they're about to have like a really bad demographic collapse.
Hmm.
Their society is rapidly aging because they had that whole single child policy.
Yes, I remember
Um,
learning about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and they have a diminishing workforce, and their population
Hmm.
is about to really rapidly collapse. And I feel like they're trying to
Hmm.
project strength when in reality they're on the verge of, falling
Hmm.
apart.
Yeah, that makes sense because yeah, if one, you're only going to have one baby allowed, it's obviously going to create a problem down the line. I feel like at that moment in time, they just thought, oh, population control, or
Yeah, Mao.
whatever
I think
they're.
Mao
Mhm.
Mao did it because he I can't remember what the actual
Mhm.
justification was for it, but I think that it was because he had a fear of overpopulation,
Mhm.
um, and he didn't want the. Let me double check this because it was part of the Great Leap Forward where he wanted to industrialize, and when he industrialized,
Mhm.
the birth rate went up. So then it was like
Gotcha.
a Great Leap Forward also was a massive failure, but,
Mhm.
not to get too much into that.
No, you're chill. I mean, I
Um,
don't, like I said, I learned it like a while back in like school
mhm,
somewhere. Like I saw if I was in school, I probably wasn't paying too much about it. Paying too much attention.
mhm. Yeah, so let me just double check so I don't talk out of my
No, you're
ass.
chilling. No, you're good. It's always good to check the info. That's why I'm like checking my notes right now. Is there anything important I got to bring up later?
Oh, okay, so I think it was actually yeah, I mean, it was out of fears of, overpopulation, but it wasn't implemented until 1980, which was after Mao's death, I believe.
Mm.
But it was still the whole thing. It was, yeah, it was Deng Xiaoping, but, it was like overpopulation because they industrialized very quickly, so they didn't want to.
Mhm.
But because of that, they now have an incredibly rapidly aging population with
Mhm.
very few young people. So it's kind of like what's happening in Japan, but
Yeah, I
it's
know
going to
it's
be
real bad
pretty
over there.
bad.
I did hear about that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
Yep. Japan's also having a lot of issues with their bank, so they've been like raising rates and they cut rates. Then like they're changing their money supply back and forth. So they
Yeah.
kind of seem like they have I don't want to say a currency crisis, but
Well, they never recovered from the '90s when their economy collapsed. They
yeah,
never fully got out of that, like, slump.
yeah, no, that's a great point because I remember when I first started getting into stocks and like looking at like just different like markets, I was like, oh, okay, like what's the Japan market look like? I was like, oh, what happened back there? And then I looked,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, like they never really like it took a straight decline and then never really got back there because it just completely screwed them. So
Yeah.
it's a scary thing because then I think like, well, what if that happens with other markets? And is that the
Yeah.
world we're going into, like a
Don't
stagflation
worry.
type of
We're
world?
too big to fail, so
Yeah,
it'll
exactly.
never
Too
happen
big
to
to
us.
fail. Yeah, yeah. That's my concern is, and I don't want to get, I don't know if this is like political or I'm no expert on this. I guess I'll just say that. But I start to wonder is the whole play between Putin, and the non-West, like you have Russia, you have China, you have the Saudis. I mean, they could control oil. The
Mhm.
US dollar, they're not really making trades as much in the US dollar from what I understand. And that's the
Yeah.
whole thing that the US dollar is the world reserve currency. And that's kind of what gives us a lot of power. And then I start to
Mhm.
think, well, everybody always thinks, we're the West, we're the Europe, we're the US, nobody could stop us. But all of a sudden, when,
Mhm.
we don't have control of oil and the US dollar
Yeah.
doesn't really become the world reserve currency, then it's all of a sudden like, wait a minute, it's a really scary thought that those could be the countries really controlling like the world as a whole.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or like, is that something you think could possibly? I don't know. I'm just spitballing that, but I
Yeah,
kind of
I
feel like
mean,
maybe that's like the big idea here. It's not really just about Ukraine. Like,
yeah, that really is what the struggle is about between the West and the East, like
hmm
between Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, and then the West. But the thing is, even combined, those countries don't have the resources to replace the US. The US is
hmm
really like the perfect country in the sense that it's like in the middle of the world, really. It's in the Atlantic and the Pacific. It
hmm
has access to both. And it
that's a
has
great point. Yeah,
the US has a ton of resources at its disposal,
hmm
oil and whatnot.
it's true. We
And
should start
China,
drilling it again.
yeah, if we start.
But yeah,
But
no, I know what you're saying. Keep going.
China's limited in where it
hmm
can expand. China is basically surrounded by mountains and desert and inhospitable environments. It's stuck on the coast. It doesn't have a lot of resources in its territory. It's a mainly import based economy, really. That's where they get a lot of their stuff. A lot of their food
hmm
is on imports. And Saudi Arabia has oil, but that's pretty much all it has.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and and
Aramco.
Russia has oil, but it's also limited by geography. It's has
hmm
no warm water ports except for Kaliningrad, which is completely surrounded by Western countries. And I mean,
hmm
even together, these countries, the only thing that they have is nukes, and that's basically it. That's the only
Gotcha.
thing they have that could actually go up against the West. That's the only reason why they're still around is because they have nukes. Um,
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, I see what you're
yeah,
saying. That makes sense. No, it's good info because yeah, I don't have that much, so I just like saying kind of what I think, but that makes me feel better. I can sleep a little better at night. Be like, damn, I'm not gonna
yeah,
wake up one day with Vladimir
and
Putin as my president or
yeah. I
something
mean,
crazy.
that's not even mentioning the massive internal unrest each of those countries have. I mean, Saudi
That's a great point.
Arabia
Yeah.
has, not only ethnic tensions and like, with Yemen and
hmm
all that, but
hmm
although they're probably the most stable, but they still have massive social unrest because of their restrictive government.
hmm
And they're surrounded by enemies, especially, Iran, but they're actually making friends
hmm
with Iran.
Oh,
China's
nice. I didn't know this.
having not very nice for us,
Oh.
but um,
Well, I mean, I guess
but
nice in terms of peace in general, but
uh,
if it's not nice for us, then fuck that.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's peace because then they're going to unite against us. Saudi Arabia's never been
Well,
our
not
friend,
good then.
so yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, China has massive protests against their zero COVID policy, and even
hmm
beyond that, people want to get rid of the Communist Party. Huge unrest. I mean, they're actively committing atrocities against minorities across, and that causes massive ethnic tensions. And
hmm
Russia, people are incredibly upset with the government and how it's being handled.
Oh yeah,
And
makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Yemen, Saudi Arabia is committing a genocide in Yemen.
mhm,
They're actively at war with them, and I mean, that's ethnic tensions right there. They're surrounded by enemies, basically. Um, that's the point I was making.
let's see what Abe says. So they had nuke troops, keep their equipment and confidence that no one will invade.
I'm not sure about
Mm,
any of that, scrapping nukes, but I know that
mhm.
during the Cold War, Russia didn't have a lot of it was um, hyped up their nuclear capabilities. They didn't have fuel to launch a lot of the nukes that they did have, and that was discovered
Gotcha.
after the fall of the Soviet Union. So I mean
I,
that part
mhm.
is yeah, that part is accurate.
No, that makes sense. It's again that kind of perspective of appear strong when you're weak, or weak when you're
Yeah.
strong.
Mm-hmm. Equipment
But
is tanks and trucks. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
yeah, definitely out of my ballpark a little bit. But hey, I'm always down to learn all this. It's
Yeah.
something I actually had a professor teach me, like when I was in school, or like not teach me, but just he basically the first day, right? It was an awesome class at the end. It's
Mm-hmm.
like business ethics, and he sits us all down and he starts like asking, he's like, "Who's the president of France? Who's the like?" And he goes around like the whole room and like, or the is it the prime minister? I know it's Emmanuel
It's the
Macron
president.
though,
Yeah,
but it
it's the
is
president.
president. Okay, but yeah, excuse me, I'll never forget. He was going around. And he was like, Roshi, he's like, how do you not know this? How do you not know this? And he's like, everybody here, like, nobody knows anything about anything going on in the whole world. Like, everybody lives in their own bubble. That was kind of the perspective he's making, where it's like other kids in other parts of the world now, in general, are, more aware of what's going on. We're just very caught up in our own, like,
Mm-hmm.
bubble and not reading what's really going on, or just, people read social media, their algorithm gets to be made however they're interested. But it just really opened my eyes. I'm like, I really don't know what's going on in the world. And then I started reading more. Obviously I always read about like stocks and stuff, but I'm like, let me go more like broader scale, like economic side of it. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I started, just keeping up with more things. But I feel like even more than I about just general
Yeah.
things
I mean,
more apart.
geopolitics is something I'm pretty passionate about too.
Yeah,
Politics at
I could
large.
definitely see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I definitely got like interest in it, and like I want to at least grasp what's going on. Definitely not
Mm-hmm.
like my like I don't know how to say it, like passion, but I guess I'm more so
Mm-hmm.
towards finance. But
Yeah. No, I
mhm.
understand that. Yeah. I mean, you're literally you're invest. You're not
Yeah,
geopolitics.
yeah,
It's
Tetron
in your name.
geopolitics. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Second channel.
yeah, the
Tetran
spinoff channel. Yeah,
geopolitics.
it'd be I was gonna try and combine her name. I don't know. It'd be Isolation Tetron, the
Yeah.
geopolitics channel.
Hell yeah.
Nah, yeah, that'd be hilarious. But yeah, it's just I think cool thing for us, like as younger people. I know I keep saying like younger individuals, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're truly living through historical times where like things that'll be written about
Yeah.
in textbooks. I mean, maybe there'll be digital textbooks at that point. We'll be
Yeah.
past paper textbooks completely. But
Yeah.
it seems like these are the years that it'll be like those 20s, those 2020s were some crazy times, like
Yeah. It seems
stuff
like
like that.
the 1930s. That's what it feels like. It feels
Hmm.
like we skipped past the Roaring Twenties, and now we're just repeating the
Yeah.
1930s. But
I,
yeah, it's a little scary.
My hope is that, or I used to say, like, I'm pretty sure the beginning of the 20s, were pretty rough. So maybe we're just at
Yeah.
that point. And, the late 20s will be great. That's just
Yeah.
kind of what we have to get to. So that's kind of what I hold out hope for
I think we have
in
to
terms of roaring
ban
20s.
alcohol again in order to get back to that.
Yeah, then everyone's like, all right, now we got to fix things. Like,
Yeah.
something's seriously wrong. We got big problems in this country. Then people will all really unite. That's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Then
is.
we'll have speakeasies and shit. Life will be good again.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy though. How people will come together for like something like that, where it's just like alcohol, or I remember
Hmm.
during the pandemic, like alcohol sales were up. It's like liquor stores were deemed essential worker,
Essential.
or
Yeah.
like essential stores to stay open, because literally
Yeah.
people would have lost their mind. Like it would have been crazy. And when the pandemic hit, I wasn't 21, so I
Hmm.
remember. I was like, "No, I don't, like, have anything," and then I didn't drink for a long period of time because parents were like,
Mhm.
"Well, I mean, why would I wanna drink too?" It wasn't really doing anything, it wasn't really that kind of
Yeah.
vibe, but, at some point, because I remember I had this, like,
Mhm.
Godiva, I don't know why I even had it. I had, like, a Godiva vodka or something, or it's not like vodka,
Oh, yeah.
it's not nasty, it actually tastes good, but it's more of like a liqueur, you just have, like, a little bit
Yeah.
with dessert or some shit, but I just drank it all in one night because I was bored. I'm like, "I don't have anything else, and this shit tastes good, so I'll just play Fortnite with the
Nice.
boys and just chill,"
Nice,
or
nice.
something like that, yeah, because it was, like, at that time, and I don't know if it's just me, but do you ever think back to, like, when we were all just sitting around houses, like, I wish I was,
Mm,
like, streaming every day or
mhm,
doing something every day, or making a video. I mean, at that time, I wasn't really doing YouTube,
mhm,
but I just wish I did, like, more in hindsight, or, like, I learned more, or, like did you get to do
mhm.
anything, like, crazy during it? I feel like I
Ye
just did so much stupidness, like
Yeah, I mean, during the beginning of the pandemic, I reminisce about, before
Mhm.
like, when I was asleep, when I didn't really realize how bad things were.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, during the beginning of the pandemic, because I was at home a lot, all my classes were online, so I did
Mhm.
live stream
Same
because
here.
I've been live
Mhm.
streaming since like 2017, but
Oh,
that like
nice.
2020 was like the best year I think on record, just because
Mhm.
everybody was online, and
Yeah.
watching streams and streaming. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was able to do live streams, and it was a good time
Nice.
for sure. So I mean, there is
Mhm.
economic benefit to me if we just completely lock down forever.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
able
see
to
what you're
make.
saying. We go fully online.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, interesting to look back, and we had a weird situation, I feel like, where the internet was always growing, 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 or, like, eyeballs on the internet was growing, growing, and then all of a sudden it went like this, and
Hmm.
then it, like, kinda fell off, and then now it's, like, back to just that steady growth, but we went through, like, a weird, like, spike where, like, everybody was
Yeah,
online always, but then people were like, "Alright, like, I actually don't wanna be online," and for the first time, like, ever, year over year, like, less people were online, less people shopped online, less people did this
yeah.
online, which I
The
just thought was
the
kinda interesting.
rebound to in person after COVID.
Yeah, it was a weird, like,
Yeah.
everybody, like, wanted to, like, see people again. I feel like now everybody's back to, like, whatever, I just wanna, like, stay home and, like, do whatever,
Hmm.
but at least there's some
Yeah.
kinda balance again?
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, though I remember the one thing I was super frustrated about, being locked down, or in hindsight, hindsight as in, like, shortly after I started working again, so it was still in the middle of things, I'm like, "What the fuck?" But I was, like, a Marshall's manager, or I
Hmm.
was on my way to become a manager, so I was still, like, supervisor or something at that point, and I really got to, like, get to the management level, like, when we did go back, but because I was, like, supervisor, they were still paying me a little bit, which I was like, "Oh, this is lit." Or, like, I got money coming in still, I'm literally just at home. Only to find out all the people were, like, also the same age as me, not, like, a supervisor, not trying to move up. They all got
Hmm.
furloughed, so they were all able to get, like, the $800. So I was getting
Hmm.
shit money, and I wasn't furloughed, and then the people who were, like, just regular employees got furloughed and were able to file for that, and I was like, "What?" Like, and also I
Yeah.
didn't even get stimulus because I let my parents claim me as a dependent, and it was, like,
Hmm.
the final time they could, so I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's fine." Like, one of the final times. So, in hindsight, I was like, "Damn, well, that sucks."
Hmm.
I guess they technically got it right, I don't remember all the terms of stimulus, but just so
Yeah.
many, like, weird things were happening, I was like, "Oh, like, I wish I
Yeah.
knew. I wish I coulda, like, prepared."
Yeah. I mean, dude, I applied to a lot of jobs like right after things started
Mhm.
opening up because nobody was working,
Yeah,
um,
I remember that was a
and
big thing, yep.
yeah, and there was apparently this huge demand for workers, and I applied to like 20 different places in my area, and I didn't get
Mhm.
any of them. It was just
Damn.
like, I was like, dude, what? Like
Dude,
that,
that's
that was
tough,
that was
yeah.
like, what the fuck? I guess people don't really want workers.
Mhm.
But I mean, I was eventually able to get a job, not in retail, but um,
Nice, yeah, don't do
yeah, it was
retail.
just, it was like, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I was in high school. I was like, what the
Yeah,
fuck? Like,
you're like,
why
"Give me
does nobody
anything."
want me?
You're
Like,
like, "I'm literally gonna just do whatever shit you want me to do, like, I just
yeah,
want the check."
exactly. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Did you ever work any kinda retail job? Like, did you wind up ever,
I never did because I never got accepted. I applied to so many places, and I nobody ever accepted me, and I don't
Yeah.
understand why. Um, I
I
never even got an
remember,
interview.
after Marshalls, like, because that's where I used to work.
Mhm.
Um, so I quit that to finish up school, and then I just did a part-time thing. It was really fun. I worked at a gyro place like nearby me.
Oh, okay, yeah, like the Greek food?
Yeah, yeah. So it was
Yeah.
really good because also I got free. Like they were like, oh, if you work like over 5 hours, like you're gonna have a break to eat like whenever you want. I was like, oh, bet. Because like the reason I started
Mhm.
working there because I was going in and I'm like, are you guys actually hiring? Like, I'll just do a few days, like, because I explained, like, I'm just finishing school, won't be that
Mhm.
long. And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, if and they're like, yeah, you can always eat, like, when you're working. I'm like, shit. I'm like, all right. Because they already,
Nice,
like, kind
nice.
of knew me from going in there. So I was like,
Mhm.
fuck it. You guys seem chill. I'll work
Yeah,
here for a
nice.
bit.
Nice. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, no, it was cool too because it was like first time I ever worked for like a small thing, because it's just
Mhm. Small
one
business.
one place. Yeah, exactly. Small
Yeah.
business. It wasn't like they had a chain or anything like that. So it was fun to like kind of just see the also learning like how to prep food because like I didn't really know that much about like cooking or anything. So like, oh okay, like I can at least know how to like properly cut things now and stuff like that. A little bit of life skills. So it's kind of a cool experience.
Mhm.
But
Um,
yeah, let's hit
there's a
Xbit's comment.
yeah.
What's the effect of CBDCs on the crypto market, and will CBDCs centralize the Visa Mastercard interest? Philosophically, of course. It's great questions. Well, one, I would say the effect of CBDCs on crypto is probably one to just wipe out the stable coins, and
Mhm.
two, just make it the mentality of like, oh, if it's not the government's crypto, then you don't want it. Or I feel like that's kind of a narrative that's going to be pushed with it, so to speak, because of this wonderful timing that theoretically, of course, everything I'm saying allegedly, the Fed now system comes out just when they're prepping CBDCs to seem like they're fully coming out, just at a great time where any bank that's kind of supporting crypto, happens to have problems. I mean, of course, there's all external factors beyond the things I just said, but just the fact all those things kind of tied together right now, I just find it a little bit concerning, or just it does seem like it's being walked in that direction, and
Mhm.
I just wonder, yeah, like I'm not exactly sure you mean Xbit about centralize the Visa Mastercard interest in the sense they're doing something together, or but Visa and Mastercard control so much because they're like the two
Yeah.
biggest names. So if they're on board with it or they're tied to it in some way, then
Mhm.
I feel like they can just kind of further the narrative or just further walk things down that line, so to speak.
Yeah. I think CBDCs basically it's not like USDC. Like people kind of
Hmm.
think that it would be like that, or it would just basically be a crypto pegged to the US dollar. It would be a total replacement of fiat currency as well as crypto and standardize it all to a government or I
Hmm.
guess Federal Reserve owned, government owned currency that's traceable everywhere. Um, which
Hmm.
is I guess that's like the end goal of people who have espoused it. So I think that the effect on the crypto market would be it would not exist afterwards if
Yeah.
it was implemented.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because it kind of seems like, yeah, you're right. If it does, it is everything. They just would be like, okay, well, you can't exchange it for Ethereum, you can't exchange it for Bitcoin. Sorry. So you think
Hmm.
like there'll be no dollars at all? It'll be like,
Hmm.
sorry, cold hard cash doesn't even cut it anymore.
Yeah, I mean people are already trying to go digital.
Yeah, that's
So
true. Because you hear about like those Amazon stores where it's like you don't even check out, you just walk out, and then knows
yeah,
what
I
groceries
I
in your cart. Like, what the fuck?
I did one of those in Seattle and it was really weird because like I picked
Really?
things up and I like tried to hide it and then put it back in a different place, but it knew exactly
It
what I had
knew?
grabbed.
Wait, tell me
Yeah.
more about it. I want to hear like what was the whole experience like? I'm very curious
Well,
if you don't mind.
yeah. So it was like a small convenience store. It was right next to the Amazon, like this, the glass biodome spheres that they have in. A
Mm,
friend of my family works there, so
gotcha.
I like as a security guard. I think he's actually one of the personal security guards for Bezos, or he was until Bezos left
Really?
Amazon. But
That's
it was
actually
yeah,
pretty
which is kind of cool. But yeah, we got a tour of the biodome things, and then afterwards, we were walking past the Amazon Go store. So I went in, and I mean, you just go in, you scan your
mhm,
phone, like your Amazon QR code or whatever, and then you're
okay.
able to go in, and it's just basically like a convenience store like there's nobody there though. It's like
Mhm.
totally empty.
So
And you
no
just
employees.
No, and, like, all the food is just on the shelf, you just grab it and you just leave, like, that's it. There's not, like, any buttons or anything that, like, happen when you pull up
Mhm,
a thing, like, in a hotel room or whatever. There's just
mhm.
you look up, cameras all over the roof, like, it's just
Like,
a
everywhere,
yeah, like a lattice, like, metal lattice thing with a bunch of cameras just all over,
up and
and, like
down.
yeah, it's crazy the amount of cameras that they have in there, and then they
It's
just
so
know.
bizarre.
It's like they use some sort of AI recognition to figure out what you've grabbed,
Mhm.
and then you walk out, and then you get a charge on your Amazon. You get a notification on Amazon that it charged to your account.
That's nuts.
It's
So there's not
crazy.
even, like, employees, like, putting things on the shelves,
No,
like, ho so I
nobody's
guess it
there.
just
It's
happens overnight?
it's
Excuse
just a
me.
closed room basically. Like, that's it. It's just a room that has food in it, and you grab and you leave, and then it charges to your
Mhm.
account,
So is
which
there even,
is
like, shopping
weird.
carts or, like, bags or
No.
any not
I mean,
even, you
there's
just
like I
walk.
yeah, you just walk in and walk out. There's not even a checkout anything. You just walk in and walk out. It's
So you
weird.
could walk in with, like, a, what's it called? Just like a tote bag. You put everything
Yeah.
in and you just walk right out, but it's just it doesn't it's
Yeah.
fine, that's how it is there, like,
Yeah.
that's
It's
so
weird.
bizarre, and, like, that's scary to me because 'cause I'm like, "Is everything gonna move towards that?" And then that's just at what point do we
Mhm.
cross the line of, like, being too digital? And then there's a certain point you really there's a point of no
Mhm.
return, I think, because
Mhm.
yeah, if we go CBDs, not CBDs, CB I literally always trip up on this acronym, I don't know why.
CBDC?
CBDCs. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. CBDCs. Once we go that route, if it kinda goes the way you're saying where it's like, it's all just digital. Sorry, your
Mhm.
cold hard cash is meaningless now, it's been replaced.
Mhm.
Then it's like all of those type of things, the Amazon store you went to, everything fits that mold. And then
Yeah.
it's like, how do you
The
undo that? Or
infrastructure's there. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly, exactly. And then it's
and
like,
if it is CBDC, then like, it's completely traceable. They know what you've bought. They know
mhm,
what you have your money in, and that just gives way more power to the IRS as well. Like, the IRS
yeah,
now, like, they know if you're, like, lying or cheating out on anything. They all of your expenses are accounted for, and it's like everything is now taxable. Everything is traceable.
mhm.
They know what you've bought, where you've been, pictures of you buying it, like, and then they can
That's
trace
true.
that and align it to, you know, have you bought, did you buy a flag? And is that flag connected to a political organization? Are you a high risk
Mm,
individual? Are you now on a watch list? Is the government now, like, spying on you because you're a high risk
mhm.
individual? And what do
Yeah,
they
or
even
you bought from
classify
these
as high
3
risk?
stores that are high
Mhm.
risk. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in quick succession.
Mhm,
You Googled online tickets to Texas, and that's a high risk area, and that's a
mhm,
high risk state. And then you went to this store, and you bought these things. You went to Bass Pro Shop, and you bought ammo. You now are a possible
mhm.
domestic terrorist. It's like
Yeah,
it's just yeah, the door's
and
open.
I feel like people on the other side of the argument would say, "Well, that's such an extreme example," but it seems extreme or
Is it?
it's
Is it?
no, yeah, I don't think
Because
so,
like
but I would say I would think people
'Cause,
would
like, I'm
say
just saying it's
mhm,
like Googling already puts you on a watch list. Like, if you Google certain things, you're already on a watch list. Like, that's what
that's
Edward
true
Snowden
by
exposed.
default.
And
Yeah.
you just factor in buying information, and like, it's the same thing. It's just giving the
Mhm.
government more power. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just it again, I think we were saying a little bit before too, where you just step by step by step, doesn't seem so bad, doesn't seem so bad, doesn't seem so bad, until all of a sudden it's like, "How do we get here?" Like, you
Mhm.
can't undo it, like and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize that, like, I don't like to say, like, NPC, but I feel like so many people do, like, just go through
Yeah.
life like an NPC, they're just like, "Well, this is just how things are," like, "Yep, yep, yep," just
Mhm.
and then all of a
I'm
sudden it's
fine with
like,
my freedoms being chipped away. Just, don't bother me.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
like, whatever, like, who cares?" Like, it's not that important anyway, right? Like
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, man. But, yeah, Dan the Man saying Tuesday's gonna be fun because tomorrow, GameStop's coming out with earnings for quarter 4 of 2022, which will also be their
Nice.
full year earnings, so it'll tell us, the full past year compared to 2021. Got a
Mhm.
video coming out on that. Actually, I pre-recorded it right before this, so I'm about to upload that right after this, so those of you out there that like GameStop, definitely be sure to check that out, some of the things I'll be looking for. But if you get a chance, you should definitely check out GameStop earnings as well. Just give it a little
Yeah,
glance tomorrow, see what happens. There's always a little bit
yeah,
of spicy price action afterwards, at least worth watching. But
nice, yeah.
but
Should be interesting.
yeah, no, another thing I'll definitely be looking at, is the DRS number. I think we talked about that a little bit, where it's like people are like registering the shares, or I'm sure you've seen it just
Mhm.
from
Yeah,
your little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
of digging. Yeah. So
yeah.
that's always an interesting number to keep an eye on because that's like guaranteed people registered with the shares. And we'll just keep continuing to see what happens with the company over time as more and more shares are just registered. And I think it'll keep going up. Seems like more people like the stock, more people buy and hold. I mean, I know I've DRS more shares since last quarter, so that's the most exciting number to me personally. But just seeing where the company's at as a whole, always dope.
Yeah, you
And
expect them to rally after the
like
earnings report?
I feel like what tends to happen, my theory, is it's gonna rally after maybe the rest of the week, but then it'll just kind of bleed back down to where it was because it just seems like it's always false hope. Like that seems to be always the price action tends to just somehow follow that, right? It's somehow as if
Gotcha.
somebody wants that theoretically, right? Just theoretically.
Mhm. I
But
wonder who would want that. You sound like a conspiracy
yeah,
theorist.
yeah, no, get rid of me, right? But regardless, it'll be interesting to see because it's just another step in like what the company's doing. But one quick thing I will say, and then we don't have to go like on and on about it because I know you don't have like that much insight on GameStop, but always good to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard it all. Credit Suisse supposedly holds the bag from some GME shorts because they were with Archegos and they do hold the Archegos bag, like the one that had blown up. So there's
Mhm.
theories that, some short interest was in swap like equity swaps that Credit Suisse held and now are they with UBS or when Credit Suisse sold off like part of their division when they started the restructuring, they sold off some of it to Apollo back in like November or something or October. So it's like, are one of them holding the bag? So people are like really watching this Credit Suisse thing because UBS is saying, oh, well, we're going to unwind all these trash positions, all these like ugly derivatives. And it's like, are GameStop shorts tied up in there? So that'll be something interesting to see over time. But that won't be overnight. That'll be at some point or another, something will
Yeah.
unravel. And that's why I kind of focus mostly on the stock itself and like what the company's doing. Because if all that underlying short interest is there, as long as the company succeeds and just drives forwards, all of that will just naturally bubble to the surface, in my opinion, over time. But it's always exciting to see. And in a way, I don't want to say like people wanted to this, but I was saying like a lot of people kind of saw this happening that were invested in GameStop. So I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
are like, it's time for the system to burn. And again, for me, I don't want the whole thing to burn down.
Yeah.
So, but it's just crazy. It's just crazy how like I've said a lot. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. But it
Mhm.
seems like it was like fuck. I don't know how to put this. If you just go back on some of the oldest posts on Superstock, just some of the top posts of all time, some of the top like due diligence, so many of it described it playing out in these ways. I mean, maybe not particularly exact dates, but just
Mhm.
so many things were written describing events that like we'd kind of see now, and it's like, holy shit, it's really happening. And Credit Suisse was a name that's been talked about a long time, like they're in trouble, and turns out
Mhm.
they really were. And then to the point that they had to be sold for such an
Yeah.
undervalued price.
Yeah. I've actually heard a few things that both AMC and GameStop were
Mhm.
like that Credit Suisse was talking about that of being the reasons why they had such a huge issue.
Mhm.
Mainly like retail investors related to mainly GameStop.
Mhm.
I saw a little bit of that on Twitter. I wasn't sure how accurate that was.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I have definitely heard about that they were caught holding the bag basically.
Yeah, and even just Archegos alone, that was
Mhm,
a massive loss, and Archegos was just doing a lot of shady things, and the reason they got the loss or got stuck with it is basically I think Goldman and a couple of the other big players pulled out just in time with Archegos, so pretty much Credit Suisse got stuck holding the bag. But
mhm,
the big issue there was nobody reviewed Archegos. They were so propped up with leverage. They were buying with way more money than they had. Like they were just basically going to, from what I understand at least, to all the big names like Credit Suisse, Goldman, all the giant international banks are like, look, we have this much collateral. Give us some more margin. Oh, look, we have this collateral. Give us some more margin. And they were using the same collateral to like every single bank. And I think Credit Suisse was the last one essentially that didn't get out in time. So they got stuck with all the losses. And it was literally they said at the time, this is going to take years to recover. And that was like 2 years ago. And clearly it never got better. There never was a great plan to kind of go out and beyond or forwards and beyond, I guess I should say. And
Mhm.
ultimately, now they are where they are now, and you just have to wonder what's next for them. What else could kind of unravel here, and how much worse could it get?
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
sorry, I think I'm getting burnt out. I feel like I'm like
Yeah.
rambling.
Been going solid for an hour and a half.
Yeah, no, damn, yeah, we couldn't. I don't have any final other things you want to say or discuss or anything on your mind.
Um, Gosh, I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of what's been going on. For sure.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything right now.
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty much it. I guess one other interesting piece of information that I wrote down today. This was like an independent study, and I don't know who these independent like individuals are. It's just done by Social Science Research Network. Again, I don't know exactly who they are, but they said 186 banks exhibit similar risks as Silicon Valley Bank, which is just like holy shit. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
how many banks are there total that study's taken from, and what are they
Yeah.
deeming to be risks? But if even just some of those deal with any kind of bank runs, you'd have to think very easily you have another
Yeah.
situation
Really
such as Credit Suisse.
gotta wonder how popular mortgage-backed securities still are. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard of credit default swaps,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
where it's like insurance basically against the company, like if they go
Mhm,
under, or like if you're a counterparty to like kind of position with them or trade, whatever. So
mhm.
Credit Suisse had their credit default swaps going up massively, like all throughout last week, because
Yeah.
everybody, everyone wants swaps in case they went under because things were looking ugly. And now
Mhm.
that UBS bought them out, or it's still being finalized and everything. I saw today now UBS credit default swaps are going up in price. So it's like, what if UBS
Yeah.
is maybe not in the greatest shape themselves, and then who takes
That's
them
that's
over? You know?
I mean, that's why the government was really pouring money into them. That's why I believe
Yeah.
they were asking the government for that much money, the Swiss government, because I
Hmm.
mean, if that goes under, if UBS goes under too, the entire Swiss economy's gone.
Hmm.
Basically, their entire economy is in
Yeah.
like it completely built around banking. Um, and
Mhm.
if UBS goes under, then that means Switzerland is going under, and I mean, that might just start a chain reaction really across Europe and the West
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, and to me, the craziest part is that the Swiss National Bank is the one pumping all this liquidity into them and like supporting everything. And again, the company Credit Suisse is valued at like 3.4 billion at the buyout price or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they're pumping hundreds of billions in. And the Swiss National Bank themselves reported a loss of 115 billion or 140 billion, whatever it is, over $100 billion loss in just
Yeah.
2022. 2023 is just getting started, like,
Yeah.
so
It
and they're
makes
the
you
ones
wonder if
bailing them out. Yeah.
yeah, if they're, like, trying to, hold on to this, like, massive basically this massive loss, this massive, almost, what seemingly endless pit, basically. And they're just trying to pass it on to the
Mhm.
next big bank so they, the
Yeah,
situation is fixed
exactly, yeah.
before. But it's like it's a basically becoming a domino effect because nobody can hold on to it. It's
Mhm.
it's just tanking. That's what I feel. It might happen like that. They might just try to keep passing it
Yeah,
on, but
like
trying
the
to
hot
prevent a
potato.
domino effect. But yeah, but cause one instead.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like the hot
Yeah.
potatoes, like, knocking over the dominoes, if that kinda makes sense, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
pass it up, knock
Yep.
over the next domino." I mean, theoretically,
Yeah.
or I see what you're saying,
Mhm.
like, if something does happen to UBS, it does become beg the question of, well, who takes them over, or what's next from here? Or
Mhm.
if UBS then got bought out, theoretically, or
Yeah.
taken over, they absorbed everything, whoever grabs them, what then
Mhm.
who wouldn't think whatever company buys them out or bank buys them out is then maybe
Yeah.
in trouble next, then everybody would start panicking
I Can you
from them.
have a
Very
bailout
bizarre domino effect. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, can you have a bailout big enough to stop it from happening? Like that's if that's actually what happens, if it gets down to that, and where they're trying to bail out the bank, but they don't have enough money to do that,
Mhm.
what happens? What happens next? Because that's never happened before. A government's
Yeah.
never run out of money before the bank,
Yeah,
or
it's
I mean, yeah,
quite
they're trying to
alarming to even
save the
think
bank.
possible.
Yeah,
It's true.
kind
I
of
really,
worrying.
really think it's like yeah, we're like in completely uncharted waters right now
Mhm,
because one, I keep saying it, like monetary policy's just been abused for a long time, and two, like you're saying, just all these banks are reporting so many losses, and the Swiss National Bank's like just pouring it all in. Fed's pouring it all in. So what do we do now? Like, what do we do if there's just no more money or just dominoes keep falling?
mhm,
Just yeah, I don't know,
yeah.
but damn, I'm gonna check the chat real quick, and then I think we could wrap it up. Let's see, fractional swaps held offshore, made McBurgerson hold my pocket today on Weevil Day. Oh, everyone's just in their old combo, I guess, over here. So the Immutable X, Robbie Ferguson directly addressed the community company and confirmed how important it all is with GameStop. All right, that's interesting. Big bank take a little bank. Fidelity's 9 trillion. Damn, yeah, I remember XP. You were saying that last time. Wells is 2 trillion. TD's 1.3. Such massive numbers, and so many of these hold just such massive amounts of derivatives. Like the
Mhm.
derivatives markets are just huge, and it's just mind blowing. I mean, that could be a whole conversation itself,
I mean,
but
yeah, but, like, you think about it, and it's like, you hear 9 trillion, 2 trillion, 1.3. It's like, that sounds like a lot, but too big to fail is not a thing, you know? Like, what
yeah,
tomorrow you
it just
could
gets
wake
bigger.
up and yeah, I mean, you could wake up tomorrow and Fidelity is just gone. Like, you don't know
Hmm.
what their internal situation is. Nobody knows except for them. They could be in a Silicon Valley Bank situation where they're just totally fucked, and
Hmm.
you have no idea. Nobody has any idea. So, I mean, you could just wake up and it's gone.
Yeah, it's such an alarming thing, and just yeah, you have to wonder, like, even just these uncertainties, even over time, if they start to be calmed down, everyone's okay, everything's going back to normal. If nothing really changes, then it's like this will just bubble up again at some point.
Mhm.
I really just feel like until people doing these things really get in trouble, you're right. There is just no too big to fail, or there is too big to fail because even like I think you were saying before, right? Didn't Janet Yellen say like, "Well, if it's
Mhm.
systematically a risk, then we're going to bail them out. It has to be
Yeah.
done."
But is the government too big to fail? I mean,
I don't know. It's a scary thought.
yeah. I mean, if the US government fails, then
Mhm,
everybody everywhere fails. Like, the entire illusion of the functioning fiat system is just
mhm.
shattered permanently.
Yeah, and
We
then
might be
it's
getting to that point. Who knows?
either CBDCs or Bitcoin. I guess at that
Yeah.
point, right? It kind of
Or gold standard. I don't know.
yeah, because to me, the thing about Bitcoin and why I still believe in the long term, and like I don't have a massive amount of Bitcoin or anything like that. And from what I have in Bitcoin, I've had for a while now. Like I just hodl. Like I'm not like trading or anything
Mhm.
like that. But basically, the reason I think it really could be valuable in the future, or like I said, I just hodl. I'll just see what happens. If it goes zero, I don't care. I
Mhm.
could sleep fine at night. What I have in GameStop relative to Bitcoin, like it's laughable what I have in Bitcoin. Put it to you that way. Uh,
Mhm.
but basically, what I see in Bitcoin potentially in the long term is it's just about supply and demand, and we've just created the dollar, created the dollar, created the dollar. Bitcoin is based on a finite supply and it's purposely made to be deflationary to just mine less over time. It just becomes then about can people actually access it, but it's infinitely divisible and it's not going to ever just have somebody come in and just create a bunch of it. And to me,
Yeah.
that's really what caught my eye about it like a while back.
Mhm.
And I think I told you last time I played the crypto run up like I was in high school at the time. It was like 2017 when everything was
Mhm.
like going really well. So that's when I really
Yeah.
first dabbled in it, and then I just kind of held some since then. And then I bought a little bit, kind of when things were good, and just again kind of hodl. And then now I'm into Loopring, which is like a partner of GameStop. Not a ton, but
Mhm.
yeah,
I mean, I'm doing the same. I've got some money in crypto and I'm just holding it.
yeah. No,
I'm
I feel like
just
that's the
gonna
way to
hold it
go.
forever.
Yeah,
I really
exactly.
like.
Just hold, just buy and hold is the best strategy. To me, anytime I've tried to trade, it hasn't worked out well. Buy and hold has always been personally the best strategy for me. And I just, think if it becomes worth that much, then I can even consider selling, whatever it is. And if
Yeah.
I'm not willing to just buy and hold it anyway, I probably shouldn't just buy whatever it is. And once I start
Mhm.
implementing that rule for myself, I feel like I just better overall like discipline and just markets and finance as a
Mhm.
whole. So,
Yeah.
but say Bitcoin, I will expiate your tokens. Gold, Bitcoin, physical cash.
I think gold is definitely, I think, the the pinnacle, I think, of what people should be buying.
Hmm.
100%, because gold retains its value because you own it physically. I mean, who knows? If we have like a solar flare, right?
Hmm.
Like your Bitcoin's gone. But if you have
That's a good
gold,
point. Yeah, the
yeah,
power grid.
gold, yeah, gold transcends borders or nationalities or anything. Like everybody recognizes the value of gold and its
Hmm.
rarity. So I think it's good to have gold if you can, like
Gotcha.
physical gold, not just futures.
Hmm. No, no, I'm just saying like you physically, tangibly have it.
Yeah,
The only thing I think with that, I mean, there's definitely
it's
counter arguments to what
expensive.
I'm about to say here. I would say like I feel like you can't really exchange it. Like nobody's gonna like just take like, oh yeah, let me get this for it. So like in a world where like
Hmm.
fiat kind of went away, I feel like how much I mean it would have value, definitely yes. But how I feel like how would people like really exchange it? If it's like you just have it in like the form of like a coin or like a bar, but it would
Hmm.
still whatever the means of trade is, you would be able to get something for it because it
There's
still
always
would
going to
like
be like a
actually.
conversion rate for the accepted amount of currency.
Hmm. That's true. Yeah, it
Um,
makes sense.
so yeah, I mean, it's just you just hold it. You just hold it until you can convert it
Hmm.
into something. You
That's a
know.
good point. Yeah, just see
Mhm.
whatever's going on and then convert it to what needs to be converted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly interesting. Everybody's definitely I feel like reacting in their own way to everything happening. You have some people like running to buy gold, some people you have running to buy Bitcoin, some people you
Hmm.
have running to pull their money out of their bank and stick it under their mattress. So I feel like
Yeah.
everybody's reacting in their own way. Me
Yeah.
personally, I'm just doing my thing, buying some GameStop here and there because I just like the stock and
Hmm.
just letting it ride.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I do think too, it's a little bit overblown. I don't know what you think about this, but everyone worrying about like, oh, FDIC, um, or I don't know how I want to put it, but basically everyone like bugging out like about banks going under. I'm like, if you don't have over 250,000, like, what are you worried
Hmm.
about? I mean, not
Yeah.
that we want FDIC just bailing everyone out, and like what we were saying before, it's just going to lead to more money supply and more inflation,
Yeah.
more taxpayers eventually bearing it, whatever. But
Yeah.
point is, if I have way less than 250,000, like I'm not worried. I'm not gonna lose sleep, or I'm not gonna run to like my local bank and like pull out all my dollars. So
Yeah. I mean,
mhm.
what happens if the FDIC runs out? If everything goes at once, can they
Yeah,
even afford it?
from what I understand, they pretty much use most of their money to just give it to Silicon Valley Bank or like most of like their reserve because they said, oh well, none of it's going to come from the taxpayer or like,
Yeah.
oh
Bullshit.
yeah, exactly. So whatever reserve they had, from what I understand, they used most of it already on like Signature and Silicon Valley. And I think the reason is kind of what we said before. They're trying to just put band-aids on this problem now before it expands. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to wonder just will we just print money? Will they eventually be like, okay, well, we have to raise taxes in some shape or form? And do you think, well, aren't they trying to abolish what is it, the IRS, right? Or did that
Yeah.
already get knocked down?
No, that's not gonna get passed.
Yeah,
Come on
I
now.
didn't think so, but is that already done for, or there's still people trying
Yeah.
to push it, or?
I mean, the bill went through the House and passed, and then
Hmm.
just got destroyed in the Senate.
Makes
Um,
sense, yeah.
I mean, you really think Biden and the Democrats are gonna abolish the IRS? Like, come on now.
Yeah. But I feel like, I mean, income tax would be like, just on everything, like federally, that'd be weird too. Like, but yeah, why would, I don't know.
Mhm.
I didn't know too much about it, but it just seemed weird to me. Like, what the fuck? Like every single thing is gonna be just taxed off the top. Like,
I don't like the idea of a universal sales tax
yeah.
to replace income tax. That I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like I more than anybody hate income tax and I hate taxation. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, replacing it with a way that the government can track your purchases is
Yes,
not a good
exactly. Yeah,
idea.
and it
Like,
just takes us further down that road of CBDCs.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I am fine giving them in relation. I would rather give the government a piece of what I make rather than telling them everything I purchased and then giving them
Mhm.
extra and giving them money that it cost me to buy the stuff in the first place. Like it might be less tax, but it's like you're giving the government more power. Why would you want that? You know?
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. And that just brings me to like a quick point that when I heard this, I'm like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. And it's such a simple concept, but it's like at the end of the day, if the government can just create an endless amount of money and thing
Hmm.
everybody just loses their mind about in this world, or the number one thing people get stressed about, the number one thing people lose sleep over. I mean, people go homeless over everything, go hungry over is money. And the government
Hmm.
at the end of the day can control how much money is created. It's like, well, yeah, at the end of the day, government really does kind of control everything, and it's really as simple as that. And I heard that, I'm like,
Yeah.
damn.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we could wrap it up there. I think that's a
Yeah.
pretty good place to leave it. I mean, there's probably lots more to come this week. It's only Monday, so definitely I'll be keeping an eye out on the banks and just everything unfolding, seeing what's happening next. First Republic, that seems to be the one in trouble right now. We'll see if
Yeah.
they get more funding. But definitely everybody here right now and everybody watching this back, be sure to check out Isolation Streams on Twitch. Check out Nathan. He's got his own thing
Hell
going.
yeah.
Definitely be sure to subscribe. Check him out on Twitch, all that good stuff. So appreciate everyone being here for the convo tonight. But
Yeah. Thank you guys.
yeah,
It was great being on. I love
of
it.
course. Yeah, I'll have you back again. We'll have to do this like every here and there. Like maybe we'll come some
Yeah,
kind of schedule or something at
for
some
sure.
point, but just here and there and just keep getting better and keep the ball rolling.
Hell yeah.
All right.